Bucs fans? We are back. It is a Monday, and it's Real Bucs Talk. We are live on YouTube, Bucs Report. Special guest on tonight. I'm Michael Pless, your host, but joined with me tonight is Evan Winter. Evan, man, it's been a while, so it's nice to have you on here.
Yeah, man. Always appreciated to be here, and glad we can share this Monday evening together.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk football, something that we love to talk about. And I mean, before we get into like Buck stuff, I mean, what's just like, I guess your brief description of this NFL offseason? I mean, it's just been like Stranger Things combined with, I don't know, Marvel Universe, all the above.
I mean, dude, it's easily been the wildest off season that I've ever experienced in my. I guess I'm dating myself at this point, but like 27 years, if my math is correct, of not just remembering or not just watching football, but digesting football. I've probably watched it since I was like 2 or 3, but I can only, really remember so far back. Either way,
Yeah.
like it's been like one big circle of irony, in my opinion, because everybody talks about how important the quarterback position is. However, there was so much quarterback movement this year, but at the same time, it was because teams needed a quarterback. I mean, like Matthew McConaughey would say, time is a flat circle. So
Yeah.
it's just been so much fun to just watch it all unfold. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of movement, I mean, you've had some movement personally. I mean, just tell the listeners and our audience, like, obviously you wrote for Sports Illustrated, but just give them a little bit of background of what you got going on now with your new team there.
Yeah, so A to Z Sports.com. Right now, we cover 8 different NFL teams. We cover 2 different NBA teams, and we cover one NHL hockey team in the Nashville Predators. And we're growing. The ultimate goal at the end of the day is cover all 32 teams, and that's what eventually is going to happen. But yeah, right now, still covering the Bucs. For those out there who still care about that, and then also doing the Packers, the Bengals, the Bears, and the Steelers in the meantime outside of Tampa Bay.
No, it's pretty awesome. I mean, have you had like interactions with any Packer fans like lately? Or I'm sure that Devontae Adams, like, and just the whole Aaron Rodgers thing, that's got to be wild.
Yeah, man. Actually, I had a lot of them hate on me because I wrote something about Devondre Campbell's deal possibly getting in the way of the Devontae Adams deal. And even though technically at the end of the day it didn't get in the way because he just chose Las Vegas, obviously, to say from an objective standpoint, I wasn't too far off. So, but no, outside of that, my experience with Packers fans has been pretty lukewarm for the most part in terms of, good interactions.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I mean, well, let's get into like just the Bucks off season. I mean, your thoughts on, I guess, Brady retiring, and then it's like kind of felt like doom and gloom, like this is it for the Bucks. We're going back into a rebuild, and then all of a sudden he makes this announcement, he's coming back, and like it just seems like everything has gone right for Tampa after that announcement. I mean, just your reaction to all of it.
Yeah, so honestly, when Brady retired, I didn't feel that
We lost
bad.
your audio.
Oh,
Yep.
can you hear me now?
Oh no,
That is weird.
lost you again. I don't know what happened.
Hold on
Maybe
one second.
hmm,
Hold on 1 second.
well, I'll try to get Evan back here. I don't know. Sound's not coming through.
Hey, what about now? Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, I just
I'm
had
gonna
to.
let me try removing you and then adding you back. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. Can you speak now? Do you guys hear him? Well, for some reason I can't hear him.
Hold on.
Maybe it's on my end.
All right, can you hear now?
No, I'm not trolling him, I don't think.
Can anybody hear me
Hold
now?
on.
Is there anything going on now?
Maybe it's my headphones. Let's see. That's weird.
So, in the comments, can people hear me in the comments? Okay, they can hear me.
Let me try this. Here, I'm gonna change. Must be my headphones.
The Evan Winter takeover of the Real Bucks Talk. Y'all didn't know it was planned tonight, but here we go. We're
Yeah.
ready to rock.
Hold on. Hmm. That's what happens when you go live. I don't know why it's not.
Hey, just ask Will Smith and Chris Rock how fun it is to go live. I can hear you good. And I think everybody can hear me good. I just don't think they can hear you. That might be the
I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Yep, stand by. For whatever reason, I can't hear him.
it always reminds me anytime there's technical difficulties for those out there who are listening and want to listen to me talk. It reminds me of The Simpsons whenever they would show.
I'm gonna try to come back. Hold on.
All right. Speaking of The Simpsons, Bart. Yeah, Krillin. It was always my objective to begin with. When they asked me to come on tonight, I was like, this is my opportunity. I'm just going to slide right up in there and take over the RBT. Y'all know me. So, just for anybody out there who cares to listen, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about the Bucs offseason, especially once Brady returned. And I'll repeat this once Plus comes back on, but I mean, like, everything was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. When Brady retired, I mean, you at least had some options to trade for, and Russell Wilson at the time. You know, Deshaun Watson was still a possibility. You there?
I think we're good now. Sorry about
All
that.
right.
All right.
Hey, that was all my intentional game plan of hijacking your show. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. What a way to start the show. But like like we were talking about, yeah, just I mean, they've already heard it, but your thoughts on just this whole wild off season.
yeah, no, so yeah, starting with the Bucks, I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I felt okay when Brady retired just because you still had options out there to trade for, even though a few of them weren't as realistic. You know, I always thought Russell Wilson was at least a possibility. You know,
Mhm.
on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of it being realistic, it was probably only about a 5 or a 6. But you know, there was always that chance. But man, when Ali Marpet retired, that was just a blow. You know, that was a kick to the crotch,
Yeah.
essentially. And that's whenever I was just like, man, yeah, as much as I try to stay objective, it's hard to paint an optimistic outlook for this team as it currently stands. Brady comes back. It's an instant shot of adrenaline into the arm, into the artery. And since then, everything has just kind of fallen back into place outside of, you know, Alex Kappa, Jordan Whitehead. But at the end of the day, those were guys you could stand to lose. So it really has been a solid couple of weeks, and there's plenty to look forward to in terms of, you know, a Bucks perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, Brady coming back and then the ability to re-sign guys like Ryan Jensen, Carlton Davis, Leonard Fournette, William Golston. So they just continue to bring back their own guys. Chris Godwin getting his deal, which looks like a bargain when you look at Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill making that
Right.
just cheddar cheese all over the place. So yeah, very, very cool. And then they're able to add, I think, new blood, which I think they needed. I think they need some, you know, fresh minds, even though it's people that Tom Brady has played with, and you know, Shaq Mason, and then you get a Logan Ryan, someone that you know of as well, because I know you follow Titans football, and he played there for a little bit. So I mean, it's just nice. And then adding Russell Gage, like, you know, a lot of people talked about wide receiver 3 and that being a potential need. And they went out and got, I think, one of the best options they could have had and Russell Gage.
100%. And the best
Yeah.
part outside of Logan Ryan, the
Mm.
best part of that new blood is it's still young.
Yeah.
Shaq Mason, if my memory serves correctly, isn't 29 yet, even though he might be 29 in June or something like that. But either
Right.
way, he's still not 30. Russell Gage is nowhere close to 30. And yeah, and not only did they bring in Russell Gage just for 1 year, it's for 3 years. So there are plenty of options outside of just 2022. Overall, it's been a great offseason for the Bucs, just in not just in terms of short term, but long term picture, big picture as well. And you can't ask for anything else better than that, honestly.
Yeah, I really I like the move of Russell Gage. I think that's gonna be like everything they wanted from Antonio Brown, but without all the extra stuff and obviously his, drama that he brought, last year. And I think he's that quick twitch. I mean, he's not really gonna make guys miss, but he's just the ability to get open and get those key third down catches. I think is going to be very nice for Tom Brady and company. It's also going to relieve pressure off of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at times. So that's very nice. And now we just have to wait and see if they can get, Gronkowski back. And I think that's leaning towards a yes. We just have to,
Yeah.
see how the offseason goes. But yeah, just having him back in the mix, that's going to complete pretty much the offense. In my opinion, I think they're pretty much set outside of, the guard position that's available. But and then you go to the defensive side. I mean, just talk about Logan Ryan and that I think that veteran presence that he can bring as a safety, but also as like a slot corner and kind of be that mismatch kind of player they can move around.
Yeah, he's essentially what Rondé Barber was towards the end of his career with the Bucs. And I'm not
Right.
saying I mean, with all due respect to Rondé, that's my guy, one of my most favorite Bucs ever. I'll never forget. I think it was 2009 or 2010 when he had the interception against Cleveland and he was returning it and he like ran out of gas like 15 yards short, or one of the players caught up against him. But either way, I'll never forget like he's a little bit Logan Ryan's still in a little bit better shape than that. And the best part about him is his versatility, like you've mentioned and like you've alluded to. And when he was here in Tennessee, now granted that was 3 seasons ago, so 2019 was his last year, and that was the year where he picked off Brady in the end zone or
Mhm.
returned it for a pick six and all that stuff. Um, he's just a football player. I hate to be cliche. I
Mhm.
hate to, use that term, but that's the definition of Logan Ryan, and a creative defensive coordinator like Todd Bowles is going to be able to line him up everywhere. He's essentially what Antoine Winfield will be in about 10 years.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, at the end of the day, though, you put him in the right spot. He's got the instincts, he's got the intelligence to where he's going to succeed. And honestly, it won't surprise me if he at least splits slot reps with Sean Murphy Bunting at a
Mhm.
60 to 40 rate is what I would assume coming into the season.
Yeah, I mean, he just brings, competition, but I think it's just a guy that can actually come in there and play a significant role and also do it at a high level. And I think that's going to be very nice to have. I don't think they're done there, in that group. But obviously, I think they're going to add a corner or a safety, mainly a strong safety. I think they're looking for, especially if it's in the draft or maybe another veteran. I'm not sure, but and it's all obviously always a good year to add corners and safeties through the draft, and obviously Jason Light has done that throughout the last couple of years. And people were in the chat here talking about wanting to get your thoughts. Maybe you already answered this when I was having couldn't hear you, but they were talking about better re-sign Ryan Jensen or Carlton Davis.
I mean, in turn, so let's just go ahead and say put a gun to my head because I'm gonna find a way to make both of them work at the end of the day. But yeah, put a gun to my head. It's Ryan Jensen, and that's because of Tom Brady.
Uh,
Whenever and that's only because Ryan Jensen signed after Tom Brady announced his return.
right.
Like, could be a completely different story beforehand. If Ryan Jensen would have signed before Tom Brady, wouldn't have been as important as in Carlton Davis because of Tom Brady. Like, you've got to keep that center quarterback chemistry. You've got
Mhm.
to be able to keep that center rest of the offensive line chemistry, whatever, replace that phrase with one word, whatever you geniuses out there want to use. And Ryan Jensen is the guy who's going to call out the protections. He's going to shift the line. He's going to recognize outside of Tom Brady who certain players are, all that good stuff. You've got to keep that intact. At the end of the day, I would have felt comfortable enough with Jamel Dean as the number one guy, and I think
Mhm.
that's who the Bucs would have made the number one guy if Carlton wouldn't have come back. So at the end of the day, yeah, Ryan Jensen over Carlton Davis the third.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think Jensen is just a huge piece of offensive line. Obviously, center. If you have a good center, usually the line works itself out, and usually you're pretty you're going to be solid at least if you have the right guy in the middle there. So yeah, that was a big re-sign, and like you said, it came just like hours after the announcement of Tom Brady. So makes it that much more special, and just knowing that that chemistry is going to continue. But yeah, curling with another question. Will we see more Mike Edwards?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I
Yeah,
think he's going to play more, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy's a ball
right.
hawk. It'll be interesting to see how they utilize him. Is he going to play more free safety, and they're going to move Antoine Winfield more down in like the box area and let him be around the
Yeah.
football more? Maybe get to see Winfield blitz more, which I think is awesome because he's a great blitzer. So, I mean, just your thoughts on Mike, and obviously the more opportunities should be good for him.
Yeah, kind of going back to what I was talking about with Todd Bowles being creative and stuff.
Yeah.
Both of those guys offer better versatility than Jordan Whitehead. Yes, Jordan Whitehead is a better box safety than both of those guys. And you could argue that his role as that box safety was almost as important as the center field role in the defense, even though I would think the center field role is more important just based off of today's NFL offenses and all that stuff. But just
Mm.
based on, intangibles, him, the hard hits, all that stuff, like just how he fit the run, all that, non-flashy stuff almost adds up to, being more important, but it's not at the end of the day, in my opinion, at least. But what Mike Edwards and Antoine Winfield Jr. both offer you is range and the ability to play the box. And in Mike Edwards' case, ability to play the nickel position, nickelback, or
Mm.
the star, the slot, whatever. So you could easily have both those guys in, or maybe even Logan Ryan, and then you'd be fine with Mike Edwards or Antoine Winfield Jr. both playing center field. Now, granted, Mike Edwards' range, I would think, is a little bit better than Antoine's,
Mm.
but still, there's just all different types of ways you can mix them in. And especially when it comes to obvious passing downs, stuff like that, Mike Edwards will be the guy back in the back. But we're obviously talking situational at that point in time. So,
Mm.
yeah, I would expect to see a whole lot Mike Edwards this year. And I would expect Todd Bowles to find a good role for both him and AW Jr. and Logan Ryan at the end of the day.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. And let's shift gears a little bit to the running back position of this team. And what's your thoughts on obviously bringing back Leonard Fournette? Was it like pretty much something they needed to do, or how do you feel about that running back position?
Yeah, definitely needed to do it. I mean,
Mm.
you Ronald Jones obviously wasn't coming back.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they offered him. Never heard any reports of them offering him anything. No, I watched his presser in Kansas City yesterday, and nobody asked him. So that's obviously up for debate.
Yeah.
But it just really, especially after last year, never really felt like he was coming back. Keyshawn Vaughn is Keyshawn Vaughn. While he showed improvement last year, it's not enough improvement to be the guy.
Yeah.
Le'Veon Bell, he's still he's still out there.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, in terms of just being a true 3-down back, chemistry with Brady, chemistry with the offensive line, Leonard Fournette was the option at the end of the day. It was just a matter of, the market. And unfortunately for the Bucs, the market did not dictate much for him, or at least better than what the Bucs had to offer.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think Leonard, I was kind of like in between it. I was like, we could look into the draft and maybe draft a guy, but then at the same time, it's like, how fast can a rookie, pick up this offense and also be ready to pass protect for Tom Brady and do all the things that you need for this kind of offense to be successful. And when you look at it, Leonard Fournette really just grew so much last year as far as just taking it over. I mean, he was that main dude where put him in there, you could trust him to pass protect, you could trust him to catch the football, and I think that was the biggest thing. His ability to catch really took leaps and bounds, and just being that kind of blanket for Tom Brady. Whenever he needed some yards there underneath, Leonard was there for him. So really good to see him back, and also the contract value I think was pretty nice, and what they're able to do for 3 years, and pretty much it's a 2-year deal. Have him for a third year as a potential option. So I like it. I mean, and you can still draft a running back, which they might do. You never know. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you wouldn't be able to blame them if they did. And
Mm.
that's the key thing with him is, a 3 down back in today's NFL is rare.
Very rare.
Yeah, and he's effective at all 3 levels of the game, the rushing, the receiving, and the pass protection. So, well, at least last year, his overall body of work, yeah, that's to be debated, but at least last year he showed a lot of improvement. So at the end of the day, yeah, you can't just line up 4 wide, 1 tight, and then the rest, the offensive line and Brady, because the defense is going to know exactly how to blitz at the end of the day, especially when it
Mm.
comes to obvious passing downs. You've got to have a back there that can pass protect. There was nobody else out there that can do what Leonard Fournette. Honestly, if I had to guess, and obviously this is just arbitrary and subjective and just a talking point,
Yeah.
but his 7 million per year, 3.5 of that belongs to his pass protection that he showed last year. And like
Mm.
I said, that's just fun talk. There's
Right.
there's nothing concrete with that, but that's where I would stake it if we're assigning numbers to everything and just having fun at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it just makes this offense flow better, especially when
Mhm.
you have a guy that can do everything out there. It
Yep.
helps you be less predictable. And we saw that when, Leonard wasn't in there. It's like, well, Ronald Jones is in there. Okay. They're going to do some
They
type
ain't
of,
throwing it.
yeah, they're doing some type of run, or they're going to try to do, some type of play action, but he's going to be out of the blocking assignment. He's not going to be in there. And it kind of, it just leaves you more opportunity for Brady to either, some type of mistake could be more potential than having a Leonard Fournette in there where for sure, okay, he's going to do his job and make sure that everything is on the right track.
Yeah, and going back to Ronald Jones,
Mm.
just whatever happened last year, you just knew it wasn't going to work out. It's just one of those things that just wasn't going to happen. So either it was Keyshawn Vaughn or it was Keyshawn Vaughn and a rookie.
Yeah.
And with Tom Brady back in the fold, you can't have that going into this year. You just can't have that.
Yeah, agreed. So, just I mean, summing it up for the offense, I think it's a unit that is in really good shape, and it's just nice that they were able to put these pieces together and get a Shaq Mason to fill in, either left or right guard, wherever they're going to put him. I'm thinking they'll probably put him at right guard since that's where he's
Right.
played most of his career. And then obviously left guard is going to be, I think, a pretty good competition. You look at Robert Hainsey, and you got Aaron Stinney there as well. But you never know how that's going to play out. Maybe they add another guard here coming up. And then I really like the move. I haven't talked about this yet, but I like the move of adding Fred Johnson. I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's from Cincinnati. He's not going to be very good, because that line was, obviously struggled last year. But
He
I
was
like,
hurt a lot.
yeah, and I like the upside though of Fred Johnson. Still young, a lot of size, and I like that they're going to put him at tackle. And I think it just gives you another option besides Josh Wells, and also gives him competition too.
Dude, yeah, competition is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
And Fred Johnson, yeah, he's underwhelmed, but as I kind of just briefly mentioned, slid underneath while you were talking. You can call it an interruption, I guess, but he's been hurt a lot, so you never know how that can affect a player, and for what they're getting him for. And yes, Josh Wells has been okay over the last few years. Still, though, when it comes to depth, you can never have enough good depth. I mean, if that doesn't register in your brain, then I'm sorry, you're not worthy of a football. I don't ever mean to judge, but people don't understand that. They have no place in a football conversation. So yeah, bring in the depth. Let's see what happens. And that way, if we end up without a Tristan Wirfs, God forbid, or a Donovan Smith for an important game, then we have somebody in there that can trust and can hold up the fort, hopefully for those 60 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been like the mindset of the Bucs this offseason is trying to make that depth even better than it was last year. And obviously it struggled at times because there were so many injuries. And I
Yeah.
think they're trying to make sure, especially if this is going to be the last run with Tom Brady, like let's make sure we have every piece we can get, and make it as strong as possible. Easier said than done, because you got to deal with the salary cap and stuff like that. But so far, so good. Let's change a little to the defensive side. I mean, just and Ndamukong Suh, thoughts on him? Does he come back? Do you feel confident in that he returns for another year?
Honestly, I'm still on the fence. I don't know. And I don't know if it's a good thing if he does or doesn't. Like, I think the only realistic option for the Bucs in this year's draft to make an immediate impact. So put all those words, into, a pie or whatever, and
Yeah.
this is what comes out. But Devontae Wyatt is really the only guy I think that could possibly fall to 27 that would provide that interior pass rush they're looking for on a consistent basis. First round, I mean, interior pass rushers in the draft in their rookie year just don't really pan out.
No,
And
they
I looked up the stats before this using Pro Football Reference. From 1994, whenever the draft moved to 7 rounds, to now, there's only been 4 players listed as defensive left or right tackle. And I know Todd Bowles' defensive line is interchangeable. There's really no true designation. But if we're talking nose, 3 tech, possibly 4, anything outside of that is considered outside in my book. But if we're talking that inside, there's only been like 4 players with over 5.5 sacks in their first year since 1994.
Yeah.
So I feel like you've got to bring them back. You've got to bring them back, and then you draft a guy, maybe like a Perrion Winfrey in the second round, maybe third round, who's rotational, who's situational, who comes in and eventually grows into that guy while Ndamukong holds the fort down. I don't know. That's just my thought process on everything.
I'm hoping he comes back. I really like Suh. I thought
he's been great. Yeah, he's been great.
He's been really good, especially the last few years. And I know last year he dealt with a significant injury that no one talked about. He just mentioned it in the offseason.
Torn PCL, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so. So I mean, just shows you how tough these dudes are. They're machines, I guess, cyborgs out there. They find ways to play this game. But yeah, he's been terrific, and really, I think his help of developing Vita Vea and others, Will Golston, obviously taking him under his wing, and it showed. So I hope he returns, and I'm with you on the draft. I think it's going to be tough to get a Devontae Wyatt. I don't see him making it past 20, just because teams are going to want that. Like, he's so good, and a lot of the Georgia guys are going to be picked pretty quick. I mean, that was a very good defense. So you look at that, and maybe they look at some of these edge guys in the draft that could play, potentially inside, like they did with
like a Logan Hall.
Maybe a Logan Hall. I like Boye Mafe from Minnesota.
I love Boye Mafe.
I think that guy would be outstanding. Maybe you could look at an Arnold Ebiketie.
Yeah, out of Penn State. Yeah, he's fun.
So guys like that could maybe play a little bit inside, kind of like they did with Joe Tryon last year. So there's some different options, and to that point, I don't know if you agree with this, but I feel like they need more pass rush. I don't care if it's inside or outside.
Always.
They got to find another dude, because you can't really count on Joe Tryon to take up like that huge leap like they're counting on. Obviously JPP I don't feel like is going to be back. And Shaq Barrett is good, He's not great. He's a good, very good technician. He's not that super athletic guy
Right.
that's going to win off the edge. They need more athleticism up front, and obviously, if you can get that at 27, I think that would be in their benefit. But again, it just depends on how the board plays, But
Well, kind of going back about a step and a half. What would
yeah,
you think about Anthony Nelson possibly playing with his 4-point stance, 3-point stance, his hand in the dirt inside? I feel like the development he showed last year, and I
mm,
mean he kind of reminds me of poor man's Carl Nassib at the end of the day.
yeah,
And that's not just because they're white, but but I mean, just like what he's shown based off his skill set and all that stuff, he could possibly get thrown into the rotation. But then no, but like a Logan Hall, like you're saying, Boye Mafe, and then just your outside edge rushers at the end of the day. Yeah, I mean they could totally be used. And the Bucs need more pass rush because obviously the 4-man rush did not work last year whenever they deployed it, and Devin White didn't take that. He had a ton of quarterback hits last year. Yes, I think he set a career high, but
mm,
he just didn't. And granted, I realize his use in 2020 was specialized because of injuries going on at the time, Shaq being on COVID, stuff like
mhm,
that. But same time, he still didn't show that exact same capability in 2021 as a pass rusher that he did in 2020. So yeah, no, I'm with you all day, man. They've got to figure something out in the front seven. And if it weren't for Sean Murphy Bunting going into the last year of his deal this year, Jamel Dean going into the last year of his deal this year,
yeah,
and
Mike
then Antoine,
Edwards.
and then or yeah, sorry, Mike Edwards, and then Antoine Winfield being the last year of his deal next year.
Mhm.
I would say completely focus on the front seven, but at the end of the day, I think I have no confidence in Sean Murphy Bunting. I think you got to throw. I think you got to throw a high pick in the defensive backfield as well.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I'm looking at like a Lewis Cine. Obviously, he could be
Yeah,
well gone before 27, but
right.
I think he would be a perfect fit because they need a strong safety. He's a guy that is just big, fast, and play pretty much anywhere you want. Perfect Todd Bowles kind of safety. And then you look at corners, obviously, Keir Elam from Florida could be a guy, again, has length, speed. Some of the Auburn corners are very lanky too. So
I like Kyler Gordon out of Washington a lot.
Washington, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the Bucks have a history with Washington. Jason Light has a very good
Yep.
relationship there, so obviously that could be an option. But I just hope they can find some pass rush, and maybe even it's a veteran that's still out there that they could add. I don't know if they'll be interested in like a Melvin Ingram or one of these.
He's worth. I mean, I would take him over Calais Campbell any day.
Mhm.
I just think Calais at this point is a taller Ndamukong Suh. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
'cause he's like 6'7". So I mean, yeah,
yeah,
I think he only had like 1.5 sacks and 12 quarterback hits last year.
yeah.
Yeah, for what he's gonna want to get paid, you gotta have way more than that in terms of pass rush.
Yeah, agreed. And maybe they look at one of those guys again. Justin Houston's out there. I'm not sure how productive he's been.
He was cheap last year. I think he was only like $3 or $4 million last year, so you could easily take a gamble on him. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, I could just and G Vegas brings it up, but I mean, again, it's just adding more pieces to the front seven, and especially if they're a veteran piece, and it just allows you to do more stuff in the draft where maybe later on you can take more, I guess, more development types, that could work out into an edge rush or interior pass rush. Um, so yeah, I mean those are good to hear just hear your thoughts on the draft. And obviously I think we see eye to eye where this team has to be better up front, getting after the quarterback, especially just more consistently so they don't have to blitz as often as they had to
Yes.
last year. And obviously they died by the blitz. And it's just you'd like to see Todd Bowles be able to play more coverage. And obviously I think he would have. It's just the injuries, I think, changed their whole plan throughout the year. And then, as playoffs came, they couldn't really change it back. So, yeah,
Definitely. Yeah, no, that's exactly what happened. The injuries just all over at all three levels of the defense
yeah.
caused him to have to do certain different things. But going back to your point about dropping guys back in coverage, what gave Tom Brady, or what has given Tom Brady the most trouble since he's been in Tampa Bay? The Saints, when they drop back in coverage and they can still get home with 3 or 4 guys.
Yeah.
Matthew Stafford, when he threw his interception, when Jesse Bates picked him off in the end zone in the Super Bowl, it was when the Bengals rushed 3 guys and still flushed him out of the pocket. Like, blitzing, yes, especially from all of us. We are all diehard Tampa Bay people. We've watched this team since the mid-90s, or not earlier, since they've had Leroy Selman, since they've had aggressive defenses, even though technically cover 2 defense at the end of the day is not an aggressive defense. But you've still got to have a good pass rush. We get it. Either way, you've got it. We're used to aggressive, good defense. And like, to be able to do that in this day and age, to rush 3 and 4 is priceless, and you've got to be able to do it effectively if you want to succeed on defense. If not, you're going to be mid-range or worse. There's no other way around it.
No, you're spot on. And here's a great question by Chris. He says, do you think they trade up at all, maybe in the first round for, maybe a high caliber prospect that maybe falls a little later?
So they haven't traded up since 2019, right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
2020, they traded up 1 spot to get Tristan Wirfs, but I don't know if you count that, but
yeah. So, but outside of the first round, didn't they trade up to get Jamel or Sean or something like that in 2019? I can't remember exactly.
I think they just traded back. They ended up trading back. They got two picks to get Jamel Dean and Mike Edwards. But yeah, trading up, I mean, hasn't been much. Yeah, I mean, unless it's for a kicker, but can't talk about that. But
everybody just like totally puckered up and left the chat, right?
Yeah, I know.
You saw a tumbleweed go through. I mean, it would just all depends on what they include in the package. I don't really think they have the ammunition to trade up.
Yeah, only 6 picks this year.
Yeah, so none after the 5th round, or none after the 4th round, rather. Right. So yeah, you just might as well, take your swings when you can and then just go from there. Unless, like I said, there's just somebody that falls that is just absolutely ideal. Like, let's say Derek Stingley Jr. falls all the way to 25 or something, then shit. Send that number 27 and a 3rd or 4th rounder, and let's get this done. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, I think you stay put for the most part.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think, like you said, if it's someone rare like that, where it's, maybe it's a Stingley, or maybe it's like for whatever reason, Kyle Hamilton, falls to, the 20s, like you go after a guy like that can be a hybrid and do it all. Devontae Wyatt, I think if he gets close enough, I wouldn't mind trading up for him. I think he's the perfect fit next to Vita Vea, and it would be a lot of fun to have him on this team. But yeah, I mean, I think what they want to do is probably stay put, and if anything, they might trade back to get extra picks, possibly.
So obviously, salary cap plays a factor in all this and everything. Right. But what do you think about possibly Larry Ogunjobi? I mean, now granted, he's been 4-3. He's been the 3 tech and 4-3 for most of his career. So you got to kind of wonder how Bulls would factor him in. But with the failed physical, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, they might be able to work something out with him.
I wouldn't mind it. He played with Cincinnati, right, last year?
Right, yeah. He was the guy that hurt his foot against the Raiders, yeah.
Gotcha, yeah. I mean, he's been a good player. I liked him coming out pre-draft, and, I think he'd be that kind of guy that they would want, push the pocket, add some speed and athleticism to your front. I mean, if they can find out a way to get a deal, yeah, I would go for it. Again, a lot of people are talking about this draft. I mean, G Vegas is on it. I mean, it's not a great draft. It's not, it's not a star-studded. I mean, there's some top, some guys at the top there, but overall, this is a draft where it's mainly value in the day 2, area, where you can find a lot of good players, not great players, but a lot of good players that are solid. And obviously the quarterback class is just that hurts it, because that position is not, I mean, you might get some reaches, but it's just not a class you're going to look at and say, you're not going to find any stars. It doesn't look that way, at least. from the QB spot. And then obviously other positions are kind of lackluster, and unfortunately for the Bucs, the defensive tackle position is bad yet again. I mean, it's just not very good.
To think about, we once lived in a world where a 3-tech like Gerald McCoy went 3rd overall.
Followed by Ndamukong Suh, right?
Yeah, right. Or no, Ndamukong went 2nd, I think, didn't he?
Yeah.
Or was it
Ndamukong
3rd?
was
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
Ndamukong was
So
first. Yep.
imagine we once lived in that world. And that was only 10 years ago. Like that, or 9 or 11 years ago. Like,
I
oh
know.
my God, crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is nuts. Like, yeah, players like that, and then you go farther back, you had 3 running backs taken in the top 5, and one of those was
Right.
Cadillac Williams at 5th overall.
The
Yeah,
CLs with him. Anything that started with a consonant or a vowel and ended with CL was bound to get torn, unfortunately. Love you, Cadillac. Love you. I'll never forget the season opener in 2005 against the Vikings.
Oh,
That
yeah.
final touchdown run.
Yeah. He was fun, man. That was an interesting year. It's just it's kind of crazy if you could play like I guess the butterfly effect, and if we take in like an Aaron Rodgers or DeMarcus Ware,
Yep.
and like what would have changed for this franchise and how different it would be.
Don't feel bad. The Titans took Pac-Man Jones that year instead of Aaron Rodgers, so don't feel bad. But
That's right.
either way, he still somehow played 12 or 13 years in the NFL, which
Yeah.
to me
Wasn't he
still blows
drafted?
my mind.
He was drafted right after Cadillac, wasn't he? He was 6th overall.
Yeah, he was 6th overall.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy though. I mean, and DeMarcus Ware went I think 11th, and it's just
Right.
like you have him on Monty Kiffin's defense with Simeon Rice. It's just, I mean,
Unreal.
that would have been nice to see.
Yeah.
But it
And
is
he
what
was,
it
and
is.
he still played at Troy during his college career too. So that
Mhm.
just shows you how badass he was in college.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think he also had what was it, Sean Merriman, I think, in that class as well, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken. So
Yep.
yeah, it's just yeah, it's funny how times have changed. I mean, running backs are devalued now, and now it's, it just seems like it's becoming more receiver-esque. Like a lot of receivers now, if throwing the football obviously is king, and receivers are just continuing to dominate this game.
Everybody just sells their soul for a quarterback, and then they pick up the pieces along the way. That's pretty much how it goes. Like, okay, we're just gonna throw whatever we can at the quarterback wall, and then we'll figure it out as the rest of the way goes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's quarterback receiver. I mean, that's how it's playing out, and we're just seeing like the trade market so far with everyone's going to the AFC, it seems like, and that's another thing I wanted to ask you. It just seems like, I don't know if Tom Brady's like the greatest wizard of all time, but it just seems like he is making the NFC pretty much his outside of the Rams, and and now you look at the AFC, it's just loaded across the board.
Yeah, well, the funniest part is Russell Wilson got traded while he was still retired. You know what I mean? Or I think maybe it was the day after. I don't know. I don't know. My mind's been so scrambled the last few weeks. But either way, no. What has happened in the AFC? So the AFC West, not only do you have good quarterbacks, but now you have good pass rushing, not just players, but pass rushing duos. I
Yeah.
mean, you've got Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. You've got Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory. You've got Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. And then, well, I guess you could say the Chiefs are lacking with Frank Clark and I don't even know. I guess you would essentially call Chris Jones the other guy since they play him at end a lot. But either way, you've still got a lot of fearsome players on the defensive side of the ball. But then you look at the AFC North, and man, the AFC North is pretty underrated in my opinion. Deshaun Watson, obviously now this is pre-suspension talk. We're just talking on paper. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. And then if the Steelers can even get half of what was initially expected from Mitch Trubisky when he was drafted 2nd overall, you've got a pretty competitive division. And let's not forget the Steelers made the playoffs, even though they finished 9-8. There was another game added to the schedule, and even though they were the 7th seed, they were the bottom of the bottom.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. But still, they made the playoffs. they return a lot of players from injury from last year, and they've had a pretty damn good free agency period, in my opinion. So, AFC North, AFC West, the AFC South is, it's kind of poo poo. And then you got the AFC East, where if Zach Wilson can take that step, that's expected of him in year 2. You've obviously got Josh Allen and the Bills. Who knows what happens now that Tyreek is in Miami?
Yeah.
And then maybe one of these days, the other AFC East team that I can't even think of, that's how irrelevant they are. The Patriots. I'm just kidding. But then you still got the Patriots, right behind the Bills. So I don't know if anybody caught that shade, but like the AFC is stacked, man.
Mhm.
It is stacked. And it's going to be interesting to see, like, especially with the media, how things play out in terms of perception over the 2022 season.
Yeah, I just find it funny that, Tom Brady comes back and it just seems like the rest of the NFC South got way worse. Like they're imploding on each other.
Nope.
So it just seems like Tom is doing what he did in the AFC East. Now he's doing it in the NFC South, where he's making these teams somehow find a way to make bad choices, bad decisions, and it's just benefiting his team, which is great as a Bucs fan. Obviously, we still have to play the games, and we got to see. I still feel like our biggest competitor is going to be the Saints, because they still have a good defense, and Jameis Winston, I think, is solid enough where they can figure it out. But obviously, they lost some pieces. Sean Payton's a big loss. You look at their left tackle. Losing him to Miami, that's big, and it kind of shifts their draft strategy as well. They're going to need receiver, left tackle, a lot of different things. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic changes, and how, I guess, Dennis Allen, approaches things, and what is there going to be their strategy. Then you have Alvin Kamara, who I think is in still legal trouble. I don't know. He got arrested, so who knows what's going to happen there, suspension wise or what have you. Michael Thomas, who knows with that dude either. So
I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not Mr. Morals by any chance. But if Alvin Kamara gets suspended after he's been arrested, so on and so forth, and nothing happens to Deshaun Watson, which I don't think I think something's going to happen to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
But it'll just show you like how screwed up the NFL is at the end of the day. But no, going back to the Saints, even though they've lost guys and big guys at key positions, they still have continuity at the end of the day. Pete Carmichael is their offensive coordinator. He's been there since 2009, I think. Dennis Allen, has obviously been a pain in the Bucs' ass since like 2015 or 2016, whatever it is. So honestly, without being on the inside or following the Saints like I follow the Bucs, my initial impression is that Dennis Allen just keeps doing his thing on defense, and he's going to let Pete Carmichael handle everything on offense, just kind of like exactly what he was doing when Sean Payton was around. So I really, in terms of coaching, I don't really expect the Saints to take too much of it or see too much of a drop off at the end of the day.
Yeah, I like their staff, and I agree with you. I think they're going to be just fine. It's going to be just come down to consistency at the quarterback position. Obviously, Jameis, I think, will benefit from not having to rotate with Taysom Hill. I don't think they're going to do that anymore. So I think that'll be a good thing for him, and it'll just be on, can they protect him? Can the offensive line be intact, and can he be make the right decisions, and how are they going to play to that? I know last year they did a good job of limiting him and making sure they kept him to 1 or 2 reads and how they played their offense, and they ran the football too. So, just be interested to see how that goes. And then the rest of the division, I mean, Marcus Mariota for the Falcons throwing to the guy next door. I don't know.
Yeah.
They just
Olamide Zacchaeus.
Yeah, they just brought in Auden Tate, I think, from.
Oh my God, that's not going to fix their problem.
No. So, and I don't even know who number 2 receiver is.
I guess Cordell Patterson and Kyle Pitts would be their number 2 guy. They're number 1 and number 2. Or sorry, Kyle Pitts number 1, Cordell Patterson number 2. Yeah, and that's gonna get real predictable real quick.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then Carolina, I don't know what Carolina's
As
doing.
long as Matt Rule's there, they're gonna suck. So
Yeah, I just that whole move just hasn't worked out. And then that trade for Sam Darnold has just man, it's turned on them very quickly. And now it'll be interesting to see what they do at 6. Do they take a Malik Willis? Do
they're
they?
talking about. I've seen a lot of people talking about how they trade up, spend more picks to go after the quarterback, and it's just like, first off,
Wow, yeah.
yeah, first off, the trade for Darnold wasn't smart to begin with, but you could have created yourself a little bit of wiggle room if you didn't approve his 5th-year option. There was no reason to do that.
Mhm.
And I guess maybe it was just a sign of Matt Rule telling the former front office that, hey, have confidence, kind of like what Frank Reich did with, Carson Wentz, put
Yeah.
his neck on the line. But still, man, you don't guarantee that to a guy with that body of work. You just don't do it. So
Mhm.
I would love nothing else because, out of all the NFC South rivalries, Panthers are my hated rival
Mm.
ever since 2003, the 12-11 or 12-10 loss. And
I was
where
at that
they,
game.
yeah, oh God, I feel so bad for you.
It was
Where
bad.
Jared Vicious went out and where all,
Everyone got hurt that game. Yeah.
everybody got hurt. And that was the end of Martin Gramatica. That was
All
just,
all
they broke him in that game.
Allstott and Jervicius ran into each other, and
Into each other.
they hurt
Right. Yeah.
themselves on the same play, and I was like, "Yeah, there goes that season." I was like, "Yeah," and then, of course, you had the Colts come back, Peyton Manning, and
Yeah. Right.
all that stuff, but, yeah, that was, yeah, Panthers went on to the Super Bowl that year, so
Yep. That was the year Stephen Davis and Machine Muhammad and
mhm.
Steve Smith, all of them went off.
Jake Delhomme, I never liked that guy, but,
Yeah, the
yeah,
Raging Cajun, they called him. Ugh, I'll show him raging.
I couldn't stand him.
Yeah, so like the Panthers, I would love nothing more to see the Panthers self-destruct anymore. So hey, Matt Rule, go ahead and trade on up, spend more of those draft picks, and then let's just hope that nothing but drama follows afterward.
Mhm. Yeah, no, agreed. I just it's been something. It's been something of off season so far, and I can't wait for the next couple weeks. Obviously, we're gonna get closer to the draft, and things are starting to play out and shape up. It looks like for this team, for the Bucs. I mean, we talked a little bit about it. Needs are, I think, more pass rush up front. Obviously secondary, maybe an offensive lineman, maybe a running back here. I'll ask you this. What about the tight end position? Do you feel like this is finally the year they draft a tight end? How high do they draft a tight end? I know it's a good group of tight ends this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them take, Jake Ferguson in the 3rd or 4th round, something like that. I feel
Mm,
like they've got to draft a tight end because even if Rob Gronkowski comes back, him and Cameron Brate are old in terms of football years. And obviously Cam Brate, yes, he's been healthier, but I feel like that's been in a part of because he's been in a more limited role over the last couple of years. And I mean, he's just his skill set at the end of the day, it is what it is. I mean, we all know that. So I feel like at the end of the day, even though tight end hasn't really been a focal point in Bruce Arians' offense until Rob Gronkowski came into the picture, and for good reason, can completely understand that shift.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, either way, they've got to draft somebody. They've got to get younger at the position this year for sure. And
Yeah.
they can't rely on Tanner Hudson and the other practice squad guy from last year. Jarrell Adams. They can't rely on them for competition this
Cody
year.
McElroy.
And Cody, there we go. And Cody McElroy. That was the other guy I was thinking of.
Yeah, those dudes. Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, it just depends on like how high are they gonna, look at one. Do they look at like a
Mhm.
Trey McBride who's kind of like
I
that?
would like that.
I mean, it would be a fun option. Obviously, a great pass catcher, a guy I think he can block a little bit. Or do they go for like maybe a more upside athleticism with the
Greg
size.
Dulcich. That's
Yeah,
the other
someone
dude.
someone like that, or
Yeah.
maybe like a Jelani. I think it's Jelani
Oh
Woods.
yeah, out of Virginia. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be interesting to see how high they prioritize. Again, it's not something they feature in this offense. It's more receivers, but if you can find a guy that can, split out wide and maybe do some blocking too. Obviously, I mean, putting it simple, like an OJ Howard that they thought he was going to be, maybe in that kind of role, but I don't know. We'll see how much they prioritize it.
Yeah, and their lack of movement in free agency. Obviously, we still have a long way to go, but so far their immediate lack of movement in free agency lends you to think that they're going to have to add somebody in the draft. And
Mm,
honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea to do a second or third round pick or fourth round pick, because if you can find that guy who's super, and that's the cool thing about the draft is in the third, fourth rounds, you usually find a ton of guys who are athletic as hell, but super raw in terms of technique. Well, guess what? The NFL is all about freaking coaching.
yeah.
So you just get these super raw guys, you develop them here in a couple of years. Who knows what they could be? So, I mean, they definitely need to keep an open mind at the position entering this year. And, it could be Byron Leftwich's team here in a couple of years, and he could view the tight end position completely different, especially with being with Gronk the last couple of years. So, who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Were you surprised that Byron or Todd didn't get a head coach position?
I was, just based off of how badly the whole Jacksonville thing went down, even though it was Jacksonville at the end of the day, unless it's Cleveland or I guess you could say Oakland at one point in time, or, Detroit or New York Jets. Like, there's only a few franchises you expect to screw it up that badly.
Mm,
But even then, with a guy like Byron, who has a good reputation amongst his peers, but yet when you throw on the tape, the results, the process, whatever term you want to use, there's still questions that linger.
mm,
Um, yeah, I was surprised that he missed out on that job, even though it was most likely Jacksonville's fault.
mm,
But when it comes to Todd Bowles, retreads are retreads in the NFL. It happens all the time,
yeah.
and I'm not trying to get political here, but black head coaches outside of Lovey Smith really don't have many opportunities as retreads. I mean, look what happened to Jim Caldwell in Detroit. So I'm not really surprised, but that's just more, like I said, political, and I'm not trying to get into all that, but
Right.
that's just more a different, non-football related perspective more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised with Byron, like you said, but Todd, I think he really enjoys being a defense coordinator. And I
I
think,
think so too. Yeah, yeah.
and I think he's in a great spot. And he likes coaching for this team and coaching with BA. And I think he doesn't want that stress. He doesn't want that extra, you know, responsibility. And I think he likes what he's doing right now. So that's a good thing for the Bucs. I think he's a great defense coordinator, especially when he has what he needs to work with and his system. I think it's a good one where when the pieces are working together and doing their job. But Byron, just use more play action. That's all we ask. That's all we need. Get that play action in there. Continue to use the motion. I saw your tweet today about
I'm about to
motion.
say they've been using a bunch of
Yeah,
motion. I'll say.
motion is fine. Keep that going. But let's get the play action ramped up. I mean, Tom Brady is just a assassin when it comes to play action. I mean, you might as well utilize it and do it more on first down. We would love to see that. So that's my message to Byron Leftwich. Let's make it happen.
Well, and obviously they got rid of all the COVID protocols when it comes to the interviews and stuff. They still haven't officially allowed reporters back in the locker rooms, but
I
they're
heard that's
probably
coming.
it's going to come. Yeah, it's going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah,
But when it comes to post game press conferences and stuff, they'll be in person now.
mm,
But the one cool thing about all the Zoom press conferences and stuff was you always kind of had a feeling that Bruce Arians kind of told them what to say before they came on. So you always felt like the play action thing was more Bruce being like, "Hey, it needs to be a product of the running game, or we need to base it off a product of the running game." Whenever you could also incorporate, and this is something I always wanted to ask, but I'll no longer probably get the opportunity to ask. Your quarterback should be good at faking it as well, because nobody ever thought Tom Brady was going to take it and run a sweep or run an inside zone handoff or whatever, or take it himself. Yet they always bid on the play action fake because he was so damn good at faking it. So Tom Brady's great at faking it. So hey,
yeah,
why not? Let's put that into factor.
yeah, absolutely. And I agree with Krillin here, guys. We
Oh yeah, for
please,
totally agree with Krillin.
yeah, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you guys haven't yet already. Check out Evan work at his new site. Mention that for the people once again.
Yeah, so A to Z sports.com. Spelled exactly how it sounds. And if you just want to check out the Tampa Bay side of things, it would be A to Z sports.com/Tampa Bay.
Awesome. I can't believe it's been an hour already. Again, this was like last minute put together. I appreciate you, Evan, so much for joining me. Just subbing in for my co-host Mark. It's always a pleasure talking football with you. But any final thoughts before we head out? Obviously, off season is just getting started, which is crazy.
Yeah, really. And really, we're just in the beginning of the 2022 off season. And man, I mean, in terms of Tampa Bay thoughts, another year with Tom Brady. So there's so much to look forward to. But at the same time, let's not get too carried away. Let's also plan for the future. Um, but I think this franchise, this front office, and this coaching staff knows how to not only take care of the short term, but the long term. In terms of the NFL, buckle up because this year is going to get wild. And hey, I know Tampa Bay fans are going to hate hearing this, but do not count out the Packers. I know losing one of your best players. And yeah, Aaron Rodgers won MVP last year, but you could honestly argue, I'm not going to say you're going to win, but you could at least hold some ground saying Devontae Adams was the best player on that team. Losing to that quality of a player certainly dents your offseason, but they've made a ton of other good moves. So watch out for the Packers. That's all I got to say.
I have to bring this up. Do you feel like we treat you this way?
Why? Hey, everybody my entire life has treated me like the redheaded stepchild. I am literally a redheaded stepchild. I have a stepmom and a stepdad. And so like I'm like double down that shit. That's probably why I look so pale all the time. But regardless, it just comes natural. So Krillin, don't worry. You probably treat me like a redheaded stepchild. You don't even know it, man. That's all, or woman. That's all I gotta say.
It's awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Evan. It's been just awesome, talking football, NFL offseason. It really is the best drama show out there. I mean,
It
we
is.
all watch Netflix and all that other stuff. I mean, it beats it all pretty much. And thank you guys who joined us tonight. Appreciate you guys. The questions were awesome. The audience always bringing it. So be sure to check out our stuff. Check out Real Bucs Talk. Check out Evan's work at his site. It's just awesome stuff as always. And I think we're out of here. So go Bucs.